Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. And our guest today, Nancy Giere, is an entrepreneur. She used to work in the corporate world, but now she has her own business and helps people design their own online course, a profitable online course. I love that. She added that. So after a lifetime in the corporate training world, Nancy knows how businesses operate, and she isn't afraid to shake things up. And that's probably her first line is probably the best line I've read in a long time. Welcome to the show, Nancy Giere.
Hey, I'm glad to be here today.
I'm glad that you are here today because this is a topic that is appropriate for me right now because I'm thinking on it, having my own online course. And I know that my listeners, either have one or want one.
Yes.
So why did you decide to leave the corporate training world and start your own business and help people, create their own trainings?
Well, my initial leaving of the corporate world, I was thrust out.
Thrust out. I love that.
I was thrust out in that I was unexpectedly laid off along with about 25% of the company that I was working for at that time. And I just saw it as an opportunity. I thought, if I don't make the effort to start my own business now, I may never do it. And I had no downside risk anymore. I didn't have to worry about walking away from a paycheck or anything like that. I mean, it's like, okay, I had my 2 weeks of severance pay, so why not get started? And much of my work early on was consulting for corporations. And I continue to do corporate consulting work. But my observation once 2020 came along and the pandemic hit and the world was turned upside down and everybody wanted to move their content online. And it's great that anybody with a computer can create an online course, but it's also not so great because people don't understand the fundamental principles of how to design a program, how to structure it, how to bring in interactive activities that enhance the learning, not just for the sake of.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Yeah, people are I see some things and, I go and I'm there for 5 minutes and I leave. It's not interesting. They talk first about themselves.
Yes.
For a long time.
Yes.
I mean, really.
I have a friend who's been timing people on webinars, and she says it usually takes them 20 minutes to stop talking about themselves and get into real content. She just sort of made a little ad hoc study of it. And I thought, wow, that's awful.
Yes, it is.
Feel they have to go because you're going to lose your audience. And in fact, I was doing some research this morning, and I'm seeing different articles, on the internet about completion rates and the studies to back them up. And they're anywhere from 5% to 15% completion, which is abysmal. It's hard, though, to really get your arms around what that really means because they're comparing a college, community college certificate program to somebody like you or me that's just decided to put a course up. So it's hard to kind of get a real read on it, but the low completion is real because there's just fatigue. I think we're getting tired of doing things online. It was the only option for a couple of years. Well, hey, now we can get outside again, right?
Yeah. Well, so maybe.
We've got maybe.
Well, the people who are listening and people like myself really, I was doing online only, remote only for years before whatever came up and decided to screw up the rest of the world. And, to me, it's great. So
right. It clearly it's not new. It just became more prevalent because there weren't other options.
Correct. Correct. And everybody became scared of whatever and decided, I have to get on Zoom or something. But they thought that they could transfer their skill, talent, information, content directly to the internet and it would work. And it doesn't.
It does not. You have to design with intention.
Look at that. Design with intention. Sounds like a good title for a podcast.
Maybe I should consider that.
Yeah.
But doesn't matter what you're designing, right? You have to be intentional.
It's a plan. You have to create a plan. You have to have you have to have a system. You have to have the steps. You have to have the outcome. You have to have the results. You have to have so many things lined up, and people just go, "Hi, how are you? If you have any questions, put them in the comment section." And it's like, I don't know you. What questions do I ask?
Yeah, I don't know where to start.
So how do we start?
Well, that's a great question, because it all starts with, well, what is the problem that you can solve for people? Or what is the type of transformation that you can bring about? What's the change that can happen as a result of participating in a course, whether it's done as an online evergreen format that people take independently, or if it's done via Zoom where you're showing up live. You have to have a clear picture of the journey that you're going to take people on. So it begins with, what's the end result? Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind, right?
Of course. Nothing has changed.
Nothing, that's just true of anything. Then you want to step back and look at, well, if I want to get people to a certain place, what are the key steps that we need to take to move them from where they are to where they want them to be? And how does my expertise align, or what makes me unique? For example, there's a lot of people that do programs about leadership. Well, what would make a leadership program that you or I would create stand out or be different? Have somebody go, let me take note of that. I have a friend. She has everything she talks about is how to stay in the game. So all of her leadership, all of her programming, there's this stay in the game theme that runs through it.
Interesting. Yeah.
That sort of like makes people go, that's interesting.
Yes, it is interesting because it is a game. And
oops, I'm so sorry. She got out of her cage. And she's run off with her toy.
Okay, I'm just writing down what time it is so that I can go edit dog. Okay. All right, so we're talking back up, stay in the game. And people understand the word game.
Mm-hmm.
And people understand longevity. And people want to be, stay in the game. They want to be part of the
relevant.
Game. What did you say?
Be relevant.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
So to stay in the game, you need to figure out, well, what do I need to do to stay relevant? What do I need to do to keep my skills up to date, to be aware of what's going on in the world around me? Mm-hmm. So it's a way of taking information and putting it in some sort of a metaphor, if you will.
Correct.
When you can do that, then there's all kinds of alliteration that you can do, and it keeps people interested, and it creates a hook. The metaphor helps for people to be able to remember the learning. It's like if you tell a great story, the story illustrates a point. So the story leads to me being able to remember what that key point is that you wanted to teach me.
Got it. Okay, so do you recommend, when you say hybrid, what do you mean by a hybrid course?
Well, there's two ways that people look at hybrid. One is there are many sessions that are happening now where the presenter is live and has a live audience as well as an audience on Zoom, or it could be flipped where the presenter is on Zoom. That's one type of a hybrid approach. And when you're putting together a program like that, it's important that you have someone is managing both the live room and the Zoom room. So if you're wherever you are as the facilitator, you're going to manage that space, but you're going to want to have a partner in crime to manage the other folks so that everybody feels that they're engaged and they're part of what's going on.
Sounds complicated.
It can be. It can be. But it's really having somebody, it's easiest, I think, if the presenter's live and then you have somebody working the people on Zoom, and then they can feed you questions, or you have to remember to say, hey, everybody at the home audience, what's going on, and to be able to bring them in. That can be a very, that's probably one of the most challenging experiences to try to run, because the challenge is, who do I play to? Do I play to the people in the room? Do I play to the people on the camera? There's a lot of situational awareness of, where are you? Where's the camera? That can be very, it can be more complicated, but you just need to really stop and think about, as you're planning it, what are going to be the logical break points where I'm going to ask a question, where I'm going to have people do an exercise, and remind myself to go, okay, I have to bring in the home audience at this point. I have to get their feedback. I just did a session like that in Dallas in May, and it ended up working out very well, because not only did we have somebody managing what was happening in Zoom, but she fed the questions to somebody in the room with me, who then was there to say, hey, these are the questions that have come up. So that's when people are talking hybrid, that's one way that they're looking at it. Another way to look at it is putting together different delivery methods in an overall program. So you could have an online evergreen program that people take independently, and then have group coaching perhaps that goes on. So you get the group together, there's conversation in the group about what's happening, and then you send them off to do a little work independently, give them an assignment. They will then maybe a week later come back to the group, share their experiences, ask any questions, and so you're keeping everything moving forward. This is really effective if you have content that you repeat and you deliver over and over and over again. It's great to extract that, put it into an online format, and that way, when you're working with people in a group or one-on-one, you can work at a much deeper level, because they've gotten all that baseline information from you.
Okay, so are these the two that we talked about, the hybrid and this particular format, different delivery methods? Are these to the public, or are these to the corporate environment?
They work in both. A lot of corporations are setting things up where some people are in person and some people are coming in via Zoom. And it's a way to have, more people engage in an experience. You don't have to, have everybody book or decide who gets to book the flight to go to the conference, right?
Right.
And who doesn't get to go. So more people can participate at a lower cost to the corporation, because they don't have to incur any travel expenses.
I see. Oh, yeah, that obviously makes sense. I'm just looking at it being very selfish in the moment, that I'm looking at it from my point of view, and I would want a evergreen. I don't know why. I think, I don't know enough to make a decision. All I know is it's got to be as simple as possible, because I don't want to get stuck screwing up on my computer.
Yeah.
Right. I remember years ago at a speakers association down at San Mateo. I guess that's where they used to have those meetings monthly. And in one of the big rooms, something was going on with the computer. This is the old days. And I remember Rebecca Morgan was the only person who knew how to touch the computer.
Oh, my gosh.
Right. And she went over and, performed a miracle and waved her hand and did whatever she did. And it was like, I can't be bothered with that. I need somebody to do that for me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting how the options have, obviously, as you said, because of what's happened for the past few years, the options have expanded. And here we are. So what if somebody wants to talk to you and get trained by you to put one of these hybrids or otherwise together? Do you have a class? Do you do one-on-one? How do you manage that?
I do both. I work with people one-on-one and help them get to what I call first is a design blueprint, which is really the end-to-end flow of the course. We go through not only what we're going to cover, but how we're going to cover it. So how are we going to teach it? What type of exercises are we going to put into place? We think about what type of visuals do we want to use. So it's really kind of an end-to-end plan. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we go into actually creating the materials. And depending on the client, the amount that I get involved or my team gets involved at that phase varies, because some people are, I have one client, she's real comfortable. She's on camera. She's doing the recording. She's got somebody on her team who does all of her editing for her. So she's good to go. Other people need a bit more support and hand-holding to get through that phase. So it's really that kind of how I go in the one-to-one work. I also offer a 2-day workshop followed up by 4 group coaching calls, which is really more accountability to keep people moving forward. Because at the end of the class, they have a great framework. And now, like a lot of things, after the class, you get back home, you get back to your office, and you go, "Oh man, there's all this other stuff I got to do." And I'm like,
right, so now what? Yeah,
to keep people, motivated and moving forward.
So you have a workshop for that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, this is for the participants of a specific group, a group you haven't planned yet, or anybody who wants to step really, up from the one-on-one.
Anybody who, yeah, it's really open to anybody. And I run the course every 2 months. I'll start another group. And the next group is going to start in either July or August. I need to take a little bit of a hiatus right now from it. I'm doing some work to kind of replan a little bit and improve on what I already have. So, but right now I'm doing a lot of one-on-one work.
So this is a 2-day workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And online, of course.
Yes.
Is it Zoomified or what?
It is Zoomified.
I bet they haven't used that word.
It's Zoomific.
Zoomific, yes.
And really, and much of it is I do some teaching, but I really, there's a lot of working sessions and a lot of group coaching, and people can really learn a lot by looking at how other people are approaching their courses. One idea stimulates another, certainly.
Now, I have to make this assumption that some people who are listening know what you're talking about. because I don't know it all about technology, and I certainly don't know, when you're talking about coaching within the day situation, I don't get how that works.
Okay. Well, what I do is people will, so we're on Zoom and I give them a particular project to work on. So one of the first things that they do is come up with their course transformation statement. So by the end of the course, what's the magic that's going to happen? So each person shares their statement. And then in the moment, I give them feedback on how they can improve it. And certainly other people in the class have ideas in terms of how something lands with them. So we're, everybody's like, cameras on, we're in gallery mode and we're just engaged in conversation. Then there's other work that takes a little bit more depth and writing on their part, where they can, for example, they'll write up the framework for a lesson, and then I'll have them share the screen, and I'll give them tips on here's what you can do to make it better. And people just really learn not only from what I have to say, but from each other.
Okay. Yeah, I remember vaguely, maybe about, let's say 5 years ago, whatever. And I was involved in a group Zoom meeting. It wasn't business or anything. And then they said, Joanne, you're going into this side room or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I panicked and I left because well, the couple things I learned. Number one, before you invite people to your event, you have to describe what's going to happen so that people know, yes, you're going to be in this group with Mary, Jane, or Joe, whatever it might be, and they'll be arbitrarily selected and you can choose a topic to talk about. Nobody did that. And when it comes to something I don't know, I sort of go, step back a little bit. And I just said, I don't want to be here because I just don't feel comfortable because I didn't know what was going to happen. Not that I need to know what's the end result. I needed to know the why of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, often this is one of the challenges that people have is they don't really think through providing clear instructions for an activity. So in this instance, if we're going to send people into a breakout room, you have to give them a clear idea of, okay, why are you sending me to the room? What do you want us to talk about? Is there something tangible that you want us to try to create and produce and come back with? Are we just going to share ideas? You have to really be very specific about what you want people to do. And it's even more important in an evergreen course where they don't have access to you. If the instructions aren't clear, I can't say, raise my hand and go, excuse me, I don't understand. I need help. I'll just look at it and go, I don't know what the heck you want me to do. So I'm out.
Right. And I would imagine that happens.
I think it happens a lot. I think that's one of the, poor instruction on what to do, how to do it, is one of the biggest impacts on completion rates next to boredom.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to hear about this. I'll take a nap while you're talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens all the time though. If you go to a movie, if you go to a meeting, there's always going to be, if you're in the Johnny Depp trial, the jurors falling asleep, I mean, the world is odd and, we live in it, but the world is odd. And if you can think about it, it's going to happen. So let's say somebody wants to get in touch with you. What's the easiest way?
The best way is you can email me at nancygiere.com, and Giere is Giere. And oddly enough, my website is also nancygiere.com.
Oddly enough, yes, it is. Which makes it real easy. People try to get some fancy names. Yes. Use your own name, people. God, why make things difficult when they don't need to be difficult? So you're going to have a workshop in July or August, depending.
Yes.
Depending. And whatever. I think everybody's away in August, or is that just Europe? I don't know. And I'm just trying to work through and come up with some other events that are coming up on my calendar, what's going to be the best time to do it. And how big are your group workshops, the 2-day workshop? How many people?
I limit them to no more than 10.
That makes sense. 10, like any group situation, 10 is handleable.
Yes.
Anything more than that is just bad.
Yeah. Otherwise, I can't really give people feedback.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you for the price because it'll change over time. And if somebody's listening to this 2 years from now, they'll go, hey, you said it was $1.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Now you're telling me it's $2. So that's not the point, people. The point is somebody is here. Nancy Giere is here to help you become a professional with your online course. How's that? Mm-hmm. And, I think that's just amazing. And I'm still going to try to figure out what I want to do, whether I want to do. Somebody told me I could have an online course with as few as 4 people. And I said, that sounds great. But I'm not there yet. But I will be after I re-listen to this podcast.
Yeah. And I know somebody that can help you.
There we go. There we go. See, ask and you shall receive.
Exactly.
Okay. So what can you tell our people, the people who are listening? Because I always advise my listeners to, after they've listened to a podcast once, they should get a yellow pad and a pen, not a pencil, a pen, and re-listen to it again and take notes, because there's always a lot of information you think you remember and it's impossible. I don't care how smart you are. You're going to miss, and you don't know what you're going to miss until you listen to it. You go, oh, I forgot that part. So this is what you have to do. So Nancy, what can you tell the people who are listening right now if you had to give them 2 tips? I like 2 today.
You like 2? Okay. Well, the first tip is when you're thinking about an evergreen course, I suggest that you run it as a webinar once or twice so that you can really practice the content, get reaction, get feedback from people, get an idea of what types of questions that they have, and then make the transition to the Evergreen program. Additionally, plan it out with the number of segments you would have in an Evergreen program. Oftentimes we do a webinar and it's 30 minutes, it's 60 minutes, and we just get on and we just talk and we go. And certainly there's agenda items, but the transitions aren't always very clear and precise. So what I suggest to people do is really mark out what the timeline is going to be. And when you get to the end of a segment, take a deliberate pause and smile at the camera. Take some questions, smile at the camera, and then get ready to make a transition statement to the next segment. By just that moment where between the two smiles, that gives you a clean place to edit your video, and you have a better chance of it being able to transfer over to an Evergreen format than if you just say, well, I'm going to do this recording and then I'll put it up there. Because oftentimes when you just try to take a recording and put it up there, you either can't find good places that make sense to edit into segments, or it's just too darn long. People won't tolerate a 30 to 60 minute video in that format. They're happy to be on a webinar because it's in person and there's conversation going on. But when you switch to Evergreen, they're like, that's just too long.
Right. And I think I've experienced them just too long.
Yes,
and I
exactly.
am impatient. I am impatient and I want my, food now. So, okay. Well, we want to thank Nancy Giere for being here today because this has been intriguing and interesting and informative. How's that? And go to her website, people, nancygiere.com, Giere, and you're going to find all sorts of information about a hybrid or a regular online course, whatever you want. Just go there, take her workshop, plan on it for this summer, whatever, do what you need to do in order to be a success in the online world, because no matter what happens next, this is here to stay.
Yes, it is.
It's here to stay. So you might as well learn how to do it right with Nancy Giere, nancygiere.com. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate you being here today. This has been wonderful.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.